Our reading today comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. Hear the story of Jesus, Mary, and Martha. As they continued their travel, Jesus entered a village. A woman by the name of Martha welcomed him and made him feel quite at home. She had Martha, who sat before the man on every word he said. But Martha was pulled away by all she had to do in the kitchen. Later, she stepped in, interrupting them. "Master, don't you care that my sister has abandoned the kitchen to me? Tell her to lend me a hand." The master said, "Martha, dear Martha, you're fussing far too much and getting yourself worked up over nothing. One thing only is essential, and Mary has chosen it. It's the main course and won't be taken from her." The word of our Creator for everyone.
Thanks for that great reading. So her name was Sister Plautilla Nelli, a nun who lived in a convent called Santa Caterina di Cavaggio. That just is so much fun to say. In Florence, Italy, around the height of the... Want me to say it again like that? What? Oh, God. Santa Caterina, Tabasco, apparently, is where she lived. Fancy Pants Arena, Tabasco. Okay. No, let's leave it on. Let's leave it on and see what happens. Let me say that again. Santa Caterina di Cavaggio. Sounds like an Italian dish. Anyway, as I was saying, should we just go eat now? Seriously? Should we just have a prayer and just go outside? Do you need to hear this? So anyway, I'm guessing most of you have anybody ever heard of her before? Anybody? No, not one single person in here. In fact, I studied countless Renaissance art history classes. That was my major in college. And never once did I hear of this woman until recently when I was reading an article on the rediscovery of what many art historians today are calling nothing short of a female master Renaissance painter, akin to Michelangelo, akin to Da Vinci and others. The article focused on a recently restored and unveiled painting. You see it up ahead of you on the Last Supper, that she painted in the hidden light of her quiet convent in Florence. I got to tell you, reading the article, her story, it's a bit sad in one end, yet it's a fascinating story. So I just want to tell you a little bit about it. The sad part is, and I know you won't be shocked, but during the Renaissance and throughout most of history, women were not allowed to practice the many crafts and trades that men were. In fact, when it came to art, painting and sculpture, women were actually banned by law. Believe that? From studying male anatomy. What's it going to do with that? Making it, I'm afraid to look, making it rather difficult to render that. If you can't study male anatomy, you can't really render the figure for paintings, right? Most of which were religious in content and therefore would involve men, which they could not paint. Well, not one to be deterred, Sister Plautilla established an all-women painter workshop in her convent, and with her obvious natural talent, she helped the other sisters become artists of their own. They were known to kind of quietly sell their works to wealthy buyers and nobility, and thus were able to achieve complete economic self-sufficiency for their convent. It's pretty cool, isn't it? And because of that sufficiency, no men then, that self-sufficiency, no men could try to meddle with what the sisters were up to in their under-the-radar art school. And their art flourished underground around the Florentine scene. Sister Plautilla was obviously on the radars of some, because the great Renaissance biographer Giorgio Vasari wrote in the Lives of the Artists, he wrote, she would have done wonderful things if she had only studied as men do. Well, the laws told her she could not, but she did not let that stop her. And now, after years of intensive restoration, Sister Plautilla's genius and talent that obviously surpassed and rivaled many of the great male artists, well, it was unveiled just recently to the world. And this is a 21-foot rendition of the Last Supper. Interestingly, she signed it, Sister Plautilla, Pray for the Paintress. I love that. And I have to say, this is one of the most beautiful images of that famous meal that I have ever seen. So perhaps it's time for Leonardo to just move on over. Sister Plautilla, the paintress, is in the house. Who knew art history could be so exciting? Huh? I recount these today for three main reasons. One, because obviously as an art history geek, I found this really, really fascinating. I love this stuff. Second, because again, like so much of our Christian tradition, I just find it continually so sad that women were pushed more and more out of the picture over time, even though the historical picture doesn't agree with their constantly being turned into what? Sinners, right? And prostitutes, or into meek and mild handmaidens, or yes, even virgins. So I just find that so sad, you know? Why do we have to do that? I don't know why history swerved that way. So I find it sad. But finally, on this day that we join one another at a table of the Feast of Oktoberfest, Sister Plautilla offered yet another reminder, through painting, of how important table fellowship was to Jesus. Now, I know this image is locked in stone as the special once upon a time sacramental supper that Jesus held with his disciples to institute a ritual meal, and to many a sacrifice that will just be reenacted countless times over the millennia, likely much to the surprise of Jesus himself. But the truth is, images like this one, so often called the Last Supper, should remind us that, you know, if this was Jesus' last, well then surely there was a first, and a second, and a third, and a fourth, and so on. Is dining with folks, all sorts of folks, sharing a meal was something that he did all the dang time. In fact, I will go so far as to say it is the hallmark of Jesus' ministry. It is a shared meal with stories and laughter and comfort and challenge taking place around tables full of people from different walks of life. But don't ask me, let's just look at the Gospels. When we just go through the Gospel of Luke, just in Luke, where our reading came from, we see so many instances of Jesus using food and a table to build a sense of community and fellowship. We just heard the story of Mary and Martha, where Jesus is visiting his friends and is regaling Mary with stories, and her sister Martha is slaving away in the kitchen, preparing a meal for them to share, and in good old passive-aggressive fashion, she says, geez, Jesus, wouldn't it be nice if my lazy sister would get in the kitchen? This is my interpretation. It'd be nice if my lazy sister would get in the kitchen and help me out here. And Jesus says, Martha, Martha, Martha. Come on, Martha. Mary gets it. She's just enjoying a visit, not stressing over all the work. Martha, in other words, was missing the point. Community and hospitality is not about the work and the busyness of putting on a good spread. Rather, in true hospitality, it was about spending time with people. It was about making the time to really sit and enjoy the people you are in community with, to hear their stories, to share in their struggles, their joys. That, Jesus tells Martha, is the key to the whole table experience, building authentic, intentional, and invested community. And we see Jesus do this countless other times, even without, again, leaving Luke's gospel. We see, I'm going to list these off for you. We see Jesus reveling at a banquet at Levi the tax collector's home, where we're told he's dining with tax collectors and sinners. Ooh, sounds like a good party to me. Jesus knew how to party, I'm going to tell you that. We see him dining at a Pharisee's house with guests and a mysterious so-called sinful woman. Ooh, scandal. A little later, we have a story of Jesus feeding 5,000 people, a radical act of hospitality. And then he's at the home of the story that we just heard, Mary and Martha. And then you know what he does? He leaves there. He leaves there, and soon he's dining at the home of a Pharisee again, surrounded by other Pharisees and lawyers. That doesn't sound so fun. Soon after that, he's found dining in a home, we are told, of a leading Pharisee with more Pharisees and other guests. And just a handful of chapters later, he's walking along, and you know what he does? He invites himself to dinner at the tax collector's Zacchaeus' home, where in the course of a few meals convinces him to give half of his wealth to the poor and pay back 4 times as much as he had defrauded. You remember that story? Then we get to our painting, this so-called Last Supper, though this is misleading because after Jesus is executed, we find him breaking bread again with a couple of women at Emmaus, and soon after eating broiled fish with the disciples as they're all gathered together. Think about it, even death can't stop Jesus from eating and dining with folks. Even death can't stop this guy from sharing a meal. That's saying something. My favorite dining experiences don't even happen in Luke. They are from John. One, of course, being my favorite text, the wedding at Cana, where Jesus, according to the story, turns enough water into wine to fill an entire wine warehouse. It's crazy. And the other one gets me every time. It's at the end of John, where Jesus appears on the beach, on the lake shore, while the disciples are out fishing. He's been executed at this point. And he builds a charcoal fire. And he bids the bewildered disciples to come and have breakfast. That's in John. Go read it. It's like he was a waiter at Perkins or something. Again, even death can't stop Jesus from eating, and especially eating with others in community. I was speaking with a colleague a couple days in November, and all that we have going on here, and especially highlighting Oktoberfest today. My friend looked perplexed and asked why does a church hold an Oktoberfest party? Boundary violation, right? And my answer was exactly that. Why wouldn't we hold an Oktoberfest party? In hindsight, I should have just said it's Jesus' fault. Because he couldn't turn down a chance to dine or party, whether in life or death, so why the heck shouldn't we? It's his fault. But it really comes down to community. And Jesus knew apparently better than most that building a sense of community takes intentionality and time for it to be really authentic and meaningful. He knew that the way to truly get to know one another was over a meal, around a table, and sharing stories and laughter in good times and in the challenging times. And so why does the church celebrate Oktoberfest? For exactly that reason. Because of Jesus and his countless examples he set for us as he bounded from one meal to another, from one gathering to another, from first suppers to last suppers, and all those in between, and even the ones that we'll enjoy when we leave this earthly realm. The crux of the Jesus way truly comes down to hospitality and the community that derives from it. So stick around today, my friends. $5 gets you the best meal ever going. And if you're visiting with us, you are our guests. You do not pay $5. We have plenty of food. We have plenty of beer and root beer. Plenty of beans and potato salads and, good God, everything else out there. There's some really good food out there. So get to know one another today. Greet an old friend. Make a new friend. Build some community today. That is, after all, according to the stories we possess about Jesus, that's what it has always been about. And surely, don't call me serious. Keep your eyes peeled. Smell that grill picking up named Jesus who sends a gathering. He may just show up and join us on the lake shore. For apparently he could never, ever turn down a good meal with friends. Happy Oktoberfest, everybody. I'll see you out at the table in just a little bit. Amen.